Hey Year 11s, welcome back. This is my third video on exam technique for AQA English Language Paper 2. And in this video, we are going to be focusing just on question 3. And question 3 is one that you're probably most confident with, or if not confident with, the one that you are most familiar with, the techniques that you need to use to be able to answer this question. So if we have a read through question 3, I'll just point out the bits that you need to re-look at from when you annotated up the paper previously. So question 3 says you now need to refer only to source B from lines 8 to 18. How does the writer use language to describe her first experience of cycling? So the first thing that you need to look out for really closely on question 3 on paper 2 is which source they want you to write about. And in this particular paper, it is source B that they want you to write about. Now, quite often, they tend to play it a bit more safe and use the more modern text for you to look at the language. Not always, but they've tended to do that in the exam. But actually asking you to look at the more old-fashioned text, the Victorian one, I guess they think it's a bit more risk-taking by the exam board, because you might find it a bit more challenging because of the more old-fashioned language that's used. But I hope that when we look again at lines 8 to 18, you won't find the language too challenging at all in this Victorian article. So it is source B that you need to focus on. So make sure that you use source B, or in your own exam, the source that it designates for you. So that's just simple exam technique. And the next bit is you need to find lines 8 to 18. And if you're following along in my first video, you should have done something a little bit like that. So you found your lines 8 to 18, you put some kind of a box or highlighted around it and annotated by the side question 3, so that you know exactly that's the paragraph that you've got to focus on. Sometimes it might be more than one paragraph, it might be 2 short paragraphs, for example. And then the focus of the question is, how does the writer use language? And whenever you see those words in an AQA English language paper, you know that they want you to analyse the effects of language. So we're going to use the PEA technique. And if you don't go to my school, if you're from another school, you might use PEE. And some people use Peter as well. And there's all kinds of different versions of this. But basically what you need to be doing is making a point. She describes her first experience as cycling when she says, drop in your evidence, give your quote, and then you really pick that quotation apart. You're going to analyze it. You're going to be zooming in on the effects of language. And as I said on a previous video, I've added in an optional S at the end of PEA. And for that S, that stands for symbolize. So you're going to make your point, give some evidence, you're going to zoom in on the effects of the words, but then you're going to look and see if those words give you kind of deeper meanings, connotative meanings, symbolic meanings. So in a way, the S is like a memory jogger for you, so that you don't forget to look for those deeper meanings. Because if you're making quite bland points, you're going to be stuck at the top or middle of level 2 of the marks scheme, which means that you'll come out with a scrapey kind of GCSE 4, or if you're pretty consistently in the middle or top of level 2 on the mark scheme, you could be on the borderline between a 3 and a 4, and that is not a very happy place to be. You want to be well into the 4 and pushing upwards when you get your results. Okay, so really trying to think about those deeper meanings. And one of the best ways to make sure that you can get deeper and symbolic meaning is to make sure that you're choosing the best quotations. Don't just go for, oh, that one's a rhetorical question, so it must be good. Don't just pick out a sentence because you think that it's got a big word in it that sounds impressive. Make sure you are picking out the best quotations that really show what her first experiences of cycling are like, and you're kind of taking those quotations, taking that evidence up to a new level with the points you make. Okay, so let's have a little read through this section. And again, I've said to you a few times that paper 2 really is quite a big step up from paper 1. So in paper 1, you still have a language question, but they actually reprint that on your question paper for you. So there's no way that you can be analysing the wrong bit. On paper 2, you have to find that. So they're kind of testing you on your common sense and your exam skills as well. Okay, so let's have a little read through this paragraph and see what we're going to learn. Riding on a track began to bore me as soon as I'd learnt to balance, but I remained steadily practicing until I could turn easily, cut figures of 8, get on and off quickly on either side, and stop without charging into unwelcome obstacles. This done, burning to try my fate in traffic, and yet as nervous as a hare that feels the greyhound's breath, I launched my little bicycle early one Sunday morning in July into the stormy oceans of Sloane Street, on my way to visit a sick friend who lived about 4 miles off. The streets were really very clear, but I shall never forget my terror. I arrived in about 2 hours, streaming and exhausted, much more in need of assistance than the invalid I went to visit. Coming home, it was just as bad. I reached my house about 3 o'clock and went straight to bed, where I had my lunch in a state bordering on collapse. I only recount this adventure in order to encourage others who may have had the same experience as myself, but who may not have tried to conquer their nervousness. And what I've done up here, as well as writing question 3, I've just put a little annotation, first experience of cycling, because I want to make sure that I'm focused on that when I'm searching for the best quotations to use. Okay, so what I would like you to do now is to pause this video. I want you to reread through this on your own, and I'd like you to highlight or underline or put a squiggly line underneath the 3 best quotations that you can actually find some deeper or symbolic meanings for. And then when you unpause, you can compare what you've highlighted to the ones that I picked out on the next page. So I'll just pause for a minute and you can pause me. Okay, so here are the quotations that I picked out. So I've got a yellow one, a blue one, and a green one. So the first one I picked out was burning to try my fate in traffic, and yet as nervous as a hare that feels the greyhound's breath. Really liked that one. The next quotation I picked out followed straight on afterwards. I launched my little bicycle early one Sunday morning in July into the stormy oceans of Sloane Street. So that was the second one that I picked out. And then this is kind of a weird one because I've got like quite a big quotation here, but then I kind of linked this one into it as well. So I put here, streaming and exhausted, much more in need of assistance than the invalid I went to visit. And then this bit seemed to fit in really well with it, in a state bordering on collapse. So she said when she got there, she was in a mess, and then when she got home, she was still in a mess. So why did I pick those ones out? Well, I loved this word burning to try my fate in traffic. Sometimes when you really want to do something, you say, I'm itching to try it. It's like, oh, I'm so excited, my skin's itching. She's gone like one more than that, she's not just itching to try, she's burning to try. And that burning is what we call a conceptual metaphor. It's this like heat is anger, heat is passion, being down is depression, being up or high shows elation. So it's these kind of metaphors, where you're trying to describe like a human emotion, but you're trying to link it to something kind of much more concrete, like being up or being down or whatever, or a temperature like this one. So the conceptual metaphor, burning, I thought I can really get my teeth stuck into that, explaining that. That shows a bit of symbolic meaning. That word fate, I really love that word fate, to try my fate, because when you think of fate, it makes you think of God or the gods getting involved, and almost like your future is already mapped out for you. And if you get on your bike and go out there and end up getting taken down, it's kind of like it was written in the stars. And then this lovely quotation finishes off with a simile: as nervous as a hare that feels the greyhound's breath. And I love this idea of predator and prey, and she feels like a hare, which is quite well known to be a very, very frightened creature, and then the greyhound, which is trained to chase after a hare. So a really, really fast predator chasing its really, really fast but nervous prey. And that seemed to me like there was loads that I could really analyse in that quotation. In a way, there's almost like 3 or 4 things to zoom in on just in that one quotation. So like when I get stuck into that, I'm going to have to watch the time really carefully. So the next one, again, is quite a long quotation, but there's loads I can really zoom in on. So the first one is I launched, and I love the word launched, because the literal meaning of launched is when you kind of kick off and start something off. But then like the deeper meaning is quite often when a ship launches, like on its maiden voyage, the first time it goes out. So it almost seems like she's kind of cracking a bottle of champagne on a ship and off she goes. And so again, kind of quite deeper meanings there. And then she talks about my little bicycle, and just that word little is a very, very simple adjective, but it's making her bike seem so small and so vulnerable. And then she continues this metaphor into the stormy oceans of Sloane Street. So here I talked about launched being a bit like setting off a new ship going out, and here she talks about the stormy oceans of Sloane Street. So it is a metaphor, but hopefully what you can see is going on there is the pathetic fallacy as well, the stormy ocean. So it's when like the weather, the storm, is creating the mood. So it's like the vulnerability of this little bicycle, the kind of the newness of the ship which is just being launched, and the lack of experience of the being launched into the stormy oceans, which conveys kind of giant size, a dark, threatening mood, and danger and peril. The idea of cycling down this busy street in West London. So again, loads and loads to get your teeth into there. And definitely if I'd done this and zoomed in and then done this one and zoomed in, I'd really have to be checking my time, because I might not even need to get onto this one. If I'd done these in that kind of detail that I've just talked to you about and explained myself really well, my 12 minutes would be up. And we'll just check here, because this is out of 12, this question 3 is out of 12, so you're going to spend about 12 minutes on it. So is it going to be 2 really, really good PEAs where you're digging for layers of meaning, so 2 really good ones, or 3 where maybe they're a little bit more shallow? Well, I'll tell you one thing, if you do 2 really, really good ones, like where you're zooming into different types of language, there you'll probably get a better mark actually. So remember that to get into the top level is detailed and perceptive. and that detailed can get you there. So just keep going at it, keep looking for those layers of meaning, those deeper meanings. Just keep going with it and you can get those top marks. Okay, so looking at the last one, I don't really want to go on about the last one because I think out of these three, it's the weakest. She describes herself as streaming and exhausted. And I liked streaming because it reminded me of two things, and we're never quite sure which one she means. Could it mean streaming with tears? She's so kind of traumatized that she's actually crying and her eyes are streaming. Or could it be that she's trying to be polite and say she's streaming with sweat? And again, whichever one you look at, it doesn't matter. So you can explore both of those interpretations there. I think it's probably sweat, but I don't think a Victorian lady was really meant to talk about sweating. I think we have that thing like horses sweat, men perspire and ladies glow, but she says she's streaming. It's a very unattractive picture of herself, which is probably not so acceptable in Victorian society, streaming with sweat. But it could be tears, as I said, and you can explore both. And she uses comparison or contrast here, much more in need of assistance than the invalid I went to visit. And then we've got these words exhausted and collapse. So you can see how much this journey has taken it out of her. So I think that you can see that last one there hasn't got that kind of depth of interpretation of the last two. Now, when I was looking through this, I thought, what are some of the things that you might be tempted to pick out that won't necessarily get you those top marks, or indeed more than half marks? There's some really nice bits, but what can you do with them? I remained steadily practicing until I could turn easily. So the writer uses adverbs, steadily, easily, to show how hard she'd been practicing until it came easily to her. What can you do with that when you get onto your analysis? This shows that she practiced really hard during her first experience of cycling. It's not really taking you anywhere, is it? Yeah, great, you know that they're adverbs, but what can you do with that? Not a lot. We might talk about her cutting figures of 8, getting on and off quickly on either side. And again, you might say, yeah, this is great. So the writer's using these verbs, cut, get on, to show how hard she's been practicing before she goes out on the street. And it shows that she's skillful and she's quick, but it's not really bringing anything extraordinary to the party. It's not giving us clear analysis. It's explaining, all right, so there's some explanation, there's some idea that you're trying to do some analysis, but it's not setting my world on fire. It's certainly not clear, and you're never going to be perceptive. Okay, so I'm really hoping that you can see the difference between picking out the best quotations and just picking out some decent quotations, but ones which aren't really going to take you up the mark scheme. Right, I've got a little model answer for you which is based on this yellow quotation, and I hope that you like my analysis. And once again, if you like, you can pause it and copy down this as a model answer. Okay, so this is what I put. The Countess explains how excited she is to stop practicing on her bike and actually take to the city streets, as she is burning to try her fate in traffic. The conceptual metaphor burning indicates how her excitement and impatience is consuming her like flames, yet the mention of fate implies she knows she has taken a risk, as if her life is almost in the hands of the gods. However, she goes on to contrast this emotion with her feelings of fear, as she is as nervous as a hare that feels the greyhound's breath. With this simile, she presents herself as the prey and the various drivers on the streets of London as predators, referencing her earlier point about being chased by cabmen. Being a countess and therefore a member of the Victorian upper classes, watching trained hounds pursue terrified hares across the English countryside was certainly a sport she would have experienced. Here she conveys her fear of cycling in the city for the first time by putting herself in the place of the terrified hare. Okay, so hopefully you can see there how I've chunked down that quotation. I've gone to burning to try her fate in traffic, picked out burning and zoomed in on that. Then I've zoomed in on the word fate. Then I've given you that simile from the second half of the quotation. And with the simile, I've worked up through the layers of analysis, predator, prey, explaining that in a bit more detail and coming out with something which, whilst maybe it's not really perceptive, it's really detailed the way that I've gone into it and showing a little understanding of how perspectives have changed since Victorian times. Okay, so what I want you to do now is to have a go at practicing some of the skills that I've just modelled for you. So if you can go back, I would suggest that you have a go at analysing the quotation that I've highlighted in blue here because I've already kind of talked you through that. So have a go at analysing this one, and you can use the one that I've just done in yellow as a model for your analysis. Remember, you're kind of chunking down the quote and then zooming in on the most important words: launched, little, stormy oceans of Sloane Street, really, really similar kind of way that is being chunked down to the previous one, and trying to really go into that detail, looking at the symbolic meaning and trying to dig for those layers of meaning, giving a lovely detailed answer to try and push towards that level 4 in the mark scheme. And level 4 in the mark scheme means that you're going to be coming out with a level 7, 8 and up to 9 in your overall GCSE score. When you're having a go at analysing this one, time yourself for 6 minutes and see if you can manage to write up all those points in detail. Good luck with that, and I will see you next time for some question for advice.